Last week on this very show, I railed against the BBC's preposterous pretense that it is impartial about the Middle East, when it is quite clearly nothing of the sort. It is painfully obvious that the notoriously biased left-wing state broadcaster is pro-Palestine and very definitely does not stand with Israel. We should not, of course, have to hand over nearly 160 quid a year to be assailed by this publicly funded prejudice. But in fairness to the Beeb, it is not the only important organisation we pay for that doesn't seem to understand the concept of balance and fairness. Step forward, the police, whose approach to rising tensions on the streets of Britain is apparently to stand back and let the pro-Palestine demonstrations go right ahead, but to stop in their tracks anyone who dares to support Israel. No wonder furious Home Secretary Suella Braverman ordered an urgent meeting with London's Met Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley, who stands accused of running a left-wing constabulary that loves the left and hates the right. I happened to be in central London last Saturday when tens of thousands, maybe even more, of Palestinian flag wavers marched past the Ritz on their noisy way to the West End. Not all the protesters were shouting jihad, but I can tell you some of them were. I didn't see many cops at all, but the ones I did see allowed the jihad chanting to proceed unchallenged. That's a call to violence that is against the law, just as it is against the law to back Hamas in any way at all. Although the BBC is having trouble embracing the concept, Hamas is an illegal terrorist organisation that people in Britain are banned from supporting. To do so is a criminal offence. I wonder if someone could at some point tell the police, are the Rozzers the same as the BBC, a bunch of Palestine fans who can't stand Israel? Begging the question, what's the difference between the BBC and coppers? Answer, the uniform. The right to protest is sacred in a free country. So, as long as they keep horrible Hamas out of the equation, it was right that the pro-Palestinian demos went ahead. So, on the same basis, pro-Israel demos should have also been given the green light, but not very mysteriously, they weren't. Police pressurised the Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism group to cancel their Pray for Israel event because the pro-Palestine mob were gathering 7 miles away. 30,000 people were expected to attend the anti-Semitism rally. Why not tell the Palestine fans that they were banned because of the Israeli fans? Will the capital's top cop Mark Rowley, who staggers from one Met scandal to the next, confirm to the Home Secretary that there's a problem with his legions of left-leaning officers? If not, why not? Dave, I expect all demonstrations to be allowed. There's something unbalanced about the fact 30,000 people were going to gather in Golders Green, not far from where I live, to support Israel, to pray for Israel, actually, in its hour of need. They were told, no, you can't have this demo. Why? Oh, because 7 miles away in Marble Arch, they're gathering to support Palestine. Well, why wasn't it the other way round? Why didn't they say to the pro-Palestinian marchers, you can't because 7 miles away, they're gathering to support Israel? Why didn't it go that way round?
I am a professional idiot. I don't know anything about it. I think it's a very big question to try and answer. I do like your characterisation of putting them as fans. Like, you've turned this into a football match. Like, they're going to get together at half-time.
Fans for each side.
Yeah, I think that's great.
That's what they are.
But I do agree, though, that the right to free protest is absolutely important.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Reem? I mean, there's a bias here, and that's a problem. We know there's a bias at the BBC. They're pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. It's clearly exactly the same at the police. The police always side with left-wingers.
Well, I don't think that pro-Palestinians are necessarily left-wingers, but I've got to say, Kevin, you're one of the first...
Well, supporting Palestine is a left-leaning thing to do.
Absolutely isn't. I mean, I think that what's interesting, though, is that you've actually said across the board, we need freedom of expression. I totally agree. There has definitely been seen a bias.
It is a left-wing thing to do.
What, to be supporting Palestine?
It is.
The UN solution was in 19...
Never mind the UN, they're useless.
Well, again,
No, we're not going to go back to...
Fight!
Let's not go back to 1948.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I won't have this. It is not
I remember 1948. I was only in my 30s
pro-Palestine.
then. I knew what was happening. I know what was happening.
What I will say is that people seem to like to present it that way, but both of us will agree that freedom of expression for all groups and all sides are important.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we've seen the police, the BBC, other public institutions effectively say freedom of expression is okay for the Palestinians, for those that are pro-Palestine, but not okay for those that want to stand with Israel. I think we should have free speech for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Free Palestine, but if you support Israel, piss off. That seems to be the message.
Well, indeed. But I think it's important that we allow freedom of expression on all sides. And I've seen some hypocrisy on people, even on our side, saying that we should have shut down the pro-Palestine marches, which I think is wrong. If we're going to be consistent, we've got to allow everyone to speak.
Well, Dave, on the basis that we do understand, we take on board that you're an idiot about everything. I always did. Seriously, there is the police always seem to support left-wingers. Do you remember during the COVID crisis when the anti-vaxxers went marching in central London? The police were down on them like a ton of bricks. If it's right-wingers, then the police... are very strict with them. If they're left-wing, they let them get away with it, like the Just Stop Oil mob. Just Stop Oil marching down the road, blocking everyone, ruining everyone's day. Police march along and say, can we get you some pizzas?
I actually don't agree with that, and I think this is...
No, you don't want to agree with it,
no.
Although it's true.
Well, this is the problem with the idea of truth, because I think with social media is where we get a lot of our news, and actually the algorithms actually skew towards what you want to see. So if you looked at my timeline, I'd see a lot of police coming down like a ton of bricks on left-wingers. You see a lot of police...
What left-wingers?
What do you mean, what are left-wingers?
When?
Well, like...
When did they come back down on the left-wingers? Did they come down on the statue protesters as they pulled down that statue illegally and chucked it? The Black Lives Matter supporters? They
came down...
No, they didn't. They let them get away with it, and so did the legals.
It's literally going through the courts at the moment. One woman that has...
Mate, let me tell you, it's the right-wingers that get it in the ear from the police. That is a fact. Because the police reflect the cultural mores of this country, and the establishment now are Guardian readers. And it seems to me that the police chiefs read the Guardian.
So I think what's interesting about this is that, I actually think it's unhelpful to call them left-wingers and right-wingers, especially with the Palestine situation. But what I will say is that there is definitely a bias with regard to freedom of expression and who is allowed to express free speech. I mean, we've had countless stories of people that defining what a woman is. We know that Thames Valley Police in 2019 said, if anybody was to reproduce the English Oxford Dictionary definition of what a woman is, then they could face criminal prosecution. And that's crazy.
And I know for a fact that coppers were the few Israel supporters that turned up in the West End on Saturday. By the way, there was just like a handful. You could count them on the fingers of one hand. One of them was a friend of mine, and she shouted something about, poor Israel, save Israel. 10 coppers descended on her and said, don't you say anything like that again. You'll be causing a breach of the police.
And also there were people
breach of the police.
With England flags.
A breach of the peace.
I want to see a breach of the police.
A breach of the police. I'm going to cause a breach of the police.
But did you see the videos on Twitter of people with England flags at the Palestine protests being told that they would be, that if they said anything racist? Sorry, what is racist about holding the flag of your own country?
Yeah, no, exactly right. We know where the police are coming from. And Dave, you're wrong. The police support the left and not the right. And there's something wrong about that. They shouldn't support anyone, is the point. Anyway, it is time now for a bad ad.
I'd like to introduce you to Honey Monster.
Mummy.
I'm not his mummy. Now, to help a honey monster through the morning, I give him breakfast, including sugar puffs and milk.
Tell him about the honey, Mummy.
Pieces of natural wheat, puffed up and tasting of honey.
Honey, the taste of honey. I love my honey. I love my mummy. I love my mummy.
So, if anyone asks why sugar puffs taste so good, remember...
Tell him about the honey, Mummy.
I'll tell you, that when I was a kid, that was Sugar Puffs. They were my favourite cereal by a mile.
Really?
Because they're the unhealthiest.
I also had Sugar Puffs, surprisingly, even though we've got slightly different ages. Is that offensive for me to say?
I'm a bit younger than you.
You're a little bit younger than me. Yeah. And I had Sugar Puffs too. It was great.
This is the section of the show where we sift through, figuratively speaking, my digital mailbox, all the fan mail that's been coming in. You've got two about you, I believe.
I do indeed, because I'm very narcissistic like that, and I kind of get off on the fact that people like talking about.
You're a magnet for hate mail. Let's hit us with it.
So I was talking about how the Trade Union Congress tweeted about me, and they sort of posted all these photos about me on Politics Live. And this person said, well, maybe it's because they've twigged what an idiot you are. I've just watched that, and I've rarely seen someone so immensely stupid and ill-informed as yourself spout such nonsense, and so smug with it. I've always thought the IEA a cluster of wits, but you've surely taken the biscuit.
Because you work at the IEA.
I do indeed. And this is another one which I find interesting. There's definitely a lab making these young right-wing people of colour for think tanks and BBC politics shows purposefully. This is totally getting ridiculous now. As if I'm being made into a factory, being made purposely to spout things I obviously don't believe in.
Please keep sending your tweets, everyone, your mean tweets, because we need them for our mean tweets section. So thank you very much for all the insults. And now it's time for a real break. What just happened?
He's mad as hell. It's Kevin O'Sullivan.
I'm still with Dave Chawner, alleged comedian, and political commentator Reem Ibrahim. Let's go. Exciting times. Can it really be true that we might actually have liftoff? Roll up for Migrant Airlines Flight 1 to Rwanda, which could finally get off the ground on, drum roll, February the 24th next year. Woohoo! That is, of course, only on the basis that the Supreme Court decides in its infinite wisdom that the government has the legal right to start sending asylum seekers to East Africa. When will the judges reach their conclusion? Mid-December. So, why will it take 2 months to get a plane full of migrants onto the runway? Why is the mantra of our snail-paced politicians, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing slowly? A bit like the Bibi Stockholm barge, which until last week was home to precisely 0 migrants 3 months after it docked in the tiny town of Portland. But last week, finally, a coach carrying a whole 21 of our illegal channel crossing chums was dispatched to the Dorset coast. Then, you'll never guess, the coach was intercepted by Just Stop Oil protesters holding banners emblazoned with the environmentally irrelevant slogan, "No prison ships," proving that the real name of these climate dorks should be Just Stop Everything. But never mind the middle-class white people who somehow believe that gluing themselves to motorways will save the planet. What the hell is going on with the barge that has become a laughable symbol of all that is hopeless about Sunak and his desperate cabinet crew's totally ineffective attempts to stop the boats? What's it all about, Rishi? 170,000 asylum seekers packed into hotels all over the country, and the Prime Minister is convinced that sticking 500 more onto a barge will somehow make all the difference. It didn't, it isn't, and now it won't. It's the epicenter of embarrassment for a government that, when it comes to the escalating migrant crisis, is all at sea. Our dear leader said he was going to stop the boats pouring across from France. That was in March, 8 months ago. Now he boasts that the number illegally arriving on our beaches is a bit lower than it was this time last year. People don't vote for politicians who break their promises. You, Mr. Sunak, made 5 firm pledges, all of which you're in grave danger of not fulfilling. And if you don't, you might as well hand the Downing Street keys to Keir Starmer right now. And when we look back on what sank Sunak, the answer will be obvious. It was the boats. And I'm right, aren't I, Reem? He made 5 promises. Inflation it might just about half by Christmas if he's lucky. That isn't really much to do with him. He made 4 other promises, getting NHS waiting lists down. That's not happening. But the biggest thing that is not happening is the boats. He stood before that lectern in the beginning of March, stopped the boats, it said. He hasn't stopped the boats, and now he goes, well, guys, I've got it down a bit. I mean, big deal. Like so many politicians trapped in the elite Westminster bubble, Boris was the same, never understood that for millions of Brits, this is a really crucial issue, stopping the boats. And he hasn't stopped the boats. That alone will sink him at the polls.
I think you're right, Kevin. And I think that ultimately when it comes to the migration issue, is the fact that we've got a huge backlog, ever-increasing backlog in the Home Office of asylum seekers that are waiting for their applications to be processed. The asylum backlog in the Home Office was 100,000 last summer. It is now over 170,000. So clearly the Home Office are failing, and Sunak has done nothing to stop this from happening. Now, what does this mean in reality? It means that supply is not there for housing. Of course, as a result of the housing crisis, and that's a separate issue, but the migrant crisis is impacting that. But it also impacts social cohesion and cultural cohesion. And the fact that the government have failed so miserably on stopping illegal migration is definitely going to be a huge, huge loss for them at the next election.
Dave, your thoughts? So it's not about whether or not you support whether or not the boats come across or you support a better deal for migrants. It's about what this Prime Minister promised. He made 5 promises to them, the top of which was, I'll stop the boats. He's not going to achieve any of them. Inflation, if he's just about lucky, might just half.
But again, inflation has nothing to do with
nothing to do with him. The other 4 he's failing on, and these boats alone, as I just said, will sink him.
Yeah. I just want to point out that you said 5, and that really made me laugh.
Well, he did make 5.
No, you put
said 5. I put up 4.
5 promises. 5 promises.
But you know what, though? I think you've raised a really good point. I can't remember what the other ones were.
He made 5 promises. Innumerate hosts. But seriously, you were saying.
I think the biggest challenge for him is what does he stand for? Because I think that was him trying to nail his colours to the mast to go vote for me, this is what you'll get. And I actually think a lot of people, I'm going to be so interested to see who turns out at the polls, because I think there's apathy that's rising across. I don't know what I'm getting for Keir, I don't know what I'm getting for Rishi, I don't know what I'm getting with politics.
We saw this with the by-elections last week. I mean, they really did show that it wasn't that the Labour Party were people were voting in their swathes for the Labour Party. Actually, what was happening is that the Conservatives just stayed home.
Yeah, old Keir Starmer. We are changing, redrawing the political map. No, you're not. That vote, that wasn't a vote for Labour. What did they vote? The turnout was less than a third.
The majority
was a vote against.
That
was a vote against the Tories.
So the Conservatives, but also interestingly, a huge amount of people voted for Reform in comparison. Actually, the Reform Party votes were less than the majority. So the idea is, if the Reform Party hadn't stood at all, it might have actually meant that the Conservatives would have won both of those seats.
I'm quite pleased with it's limited, but my Keir Starmer impression.
I love it.
Well, it's better when he got that glitter guy attacked him at the.
Yes.
Yeah, would have been interested in this. So it was how not to handle a heckler. I said, Keir, don't go into the stand-up comedy business. So this guy comes and pours his thing, and Dave, dealing with hecklers is the most important thing if you're standing on a stage. You've got to do it well. So the guy comes out, puts a ton of figures, and this was his response. Thank you, conference. Conference. Thank you. Thank you, conference. Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Yes, thank you, conference. Yes, thank you. That was it. That was his only response.
Is this what our politics has degenerated into?
When you do a show and somebody says, you're useless. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
When I do a show, I'm amazed people have turned up, so I spend most of my time going, thank you. Thank you. Why are you
Call me
here?
any name you like. I just thank you for coming, you know. Both of you. Double your usual audience. It's time for a bad ad. Take it away.
Well, what about the weather? Is it gonna rain? You can ask without any reply. But ask about the bran flakes, that's a different matter. They'll all reply. They're tasty, tasty, very, very tasty. They're very tasty. How'd you like your eggs done? Can you see the milkman? You know you got a wasp in your ear. But ask about the bran flakes, that's a different matter. One thing you'll hear. They're tasty, tasty, very, very tasty. They're very tasty.
Kellogg's Bran Flakes.
They're very tasty.
Well, the thing about bran flakes is they're not very tasty, but they do make you crap through the eye of a needle. I mean, they should have gone on that line. They'll make you crap through the eye of a needle, eye of a needle. But try that one, yeah?
I think it's very catchy. I like that. Tasty.
Eye of a needle, eye of a needle. It's quite a good chorus, isn't it? Take it away, another bad ad.
Roast delight, the family's right. The roast delight, taste around. It's delicious. It's lovely. It's Angel Delight. It's fluffy, tasty, delights too. You just add milk and then whisk it through. It's delightful, it's delectable, it's the smoothest, it's delightous, it's the limit.
Bird's Angel Delight, the most delightful taste around.
Do you know what the greatest food ever made?
Go on.
Was butterscotch flavour, Bird's Angel Delight. It is fantastic.
I love their facial expressions. Like,
Yeah, well, but that's because they probably just had some butterscotch Angel Delight, which is the best flavour. I loved Angel Delight as a kid.
I miss positive facial expressions in adverts. Everyone looks so miserable these days. Why
I
don't
think
we
there
have
are
that?
a few still there. Yeah.
No.
Buy this product. It's
But that's what it is.
You've just been watching loads of Scottish Widow adverts.
Yeah.
And you're like, why are they not happy? They've just had a payout. They should at least perk up a bit.
That's
you know
the
what I
most
mean?
miserable name for a company ever.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Bereaved Scottish women. Poor people. Anyway, listen, Dave Chorner, comedian, thank you so much for coming along. Remy Biham, a brilliant social commentator, and I have been, the well-known has-been, Kevin O'Sullivan. See you next week. What just happened?